Yeah, we're live. Yeah, another Friday morning. Good morning, wherever you are in the world, or whatever time you're watching this, watching it in the replay or watching it live. So, this really is kind of continuing the theme of something I've started over the last couple of weeks, this idea of invisible influence. And this week, I have been launching a number of strategies. Actually, no, that's not true. I've been launching the same strategy, but in a number of different ways for in terms of different products and different services that I want to promote and different ways of testing different ideas within this framework of invisible influence. So I've been doing that so I can sort of share little bits about that. And more importantly, I guess I want to kind of sort of highlight some of the things that I've seen this week that other people are doing that I don't think are particularly effective or would be better if they applied some of what I've shared over the last couple of weeks first. Second, on top of that, I decided last night as part of this campaign, one of the campaigns I'm running, that I would write a book. Now, what that means is like when I say write a book, don't think, like I'm no Steven Spielberg. I'm not going to write some epic piece of fiction or storytelling in that way, nor am I going to write anything seriously nonfiction. What I mean is I literally play to my strengths. And I think there's a lesson in this. It's like I am literally today mapping out what I want to talk about in the book as a keynote presentation. So literally the same as I do a webinar, same as I do a web class, same as I do any presentation, just map it out. So storyboard it inside Keynote, record it, and then get it transcribed. And then basically I've got a book. So you get it transcribed, get it edited, and we're done. That's what I mean by writing a book. But I'm going to write a book on sort of concepts of invisible influence. And within that as well, one of the key elements, if you are putting together a book and you were doing it for the purposes of what we're talking about here with invisible influence, then inside the book, you want to continue to layer the things that you want to be known for and the things you want to be known as. Like, remember last week, I talked about this idea that your two primary questions are, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known as? And that really, if you look at, say, Marvel superheroes or DC Comics, Superman and so on, they've kind of got this nailed. There's all these elements of it. And something that came up, somebody mentioned to me during the week, isn't this very similar to branding? Of course it is. It is branding. It's a way of leveraging branding. But what I've noticed is like words matter. And, there's I can't call him a friend, but I've spoken to him a couple of times over the last few years. He's a very good copywriter. So he spends his time, his focus is literally writing copy for clients. So that's my definition of a true copywriter. And he told me, he said, like, he spends a lot of his time just coming up with new ways to label things. Like, literally, if you can put a fresh label on it, then you can claim it as your own IP. And that's a lot of what I do in the sense of, even the idea of having a unique core solution, that idea of if you create a presentation and you're going to share something, to put it into a little model, because that model is unique to you. That's just turning it into your IP. So that is a fresh way of creating new hope in your audience. Because, of course, chances of your audience wanting to find a solution for the first time is fairly rare. I mean, it's going to happen occasionally, but it's fairly rare. Most of the time, most of the people you are talking to sell your services to have tried other things in the past. What they're looking for is new hope. So they're looking for what they perceive as a new solution. And one of the key ways to do that is just to relabel everything. Is just to create your own model, give it a new name. So yes, invisible influence is my way of describing what is essentially elements of branding. What I've brought to it that I believe adds my twist to it is the element of really understanding how to leverage that inside of stories, because stories are the mechanism to pretty much deliver any kind of message that you want to deliver, for the simple reason that we are, and I've said this before, so I'm just repeating it, is that we are, human beings are designed to tell stories. That is it. We literally evolved to tell and listen to stories, to remember stories. Our whole brains are designed for that. So it makes sense to leverage that as much as possible. So stories. So I'll give you an example of why I'm writing this book. So I've launched, and I've put a couple of slides together, so I will share the structure of this. If you start with the basic premise that if you want to move somebody from never having heard of you, or should have put on the side, never having heard of you, to basically being in a position where they're going to buy from you, then you're moving them from absolutely stone cold all the way through to really hot, ready to buy, and actually to make a purchase. So to do that, the simple way to approach it is to break that down into 3 pieces. So you've got top of funnel, where they're stone cold. You've got middle of funnel, where you can start where they're much warmer. And then you got bottom of funnel, where they're very warm. They're hot. And so if you look at it in those terms, then top of funnel is really where you want to start establishing both a connection and a bond with these people. So you're deliberately putting out materials which are relevant to them, which therefore means are relevant to a problem they have. You know, we tend to be more concerned with problems than what's the flip of a problem? Not solution, but I mean, like, we're more concerned by pain than we are by pleasure for the most part. So pain will move us to action quicker than pleasure will in most cases. So if we can start with a problem, so like if you break down, like map the gap, as I've talked about before, where are your clients starting from? Where do they want to get to? If you can map the gap and break that down into what's the first problem they face, and then if you were to then top of funnel, put out a piece of material, ideally video, because video, obviously we live in a video age, and video gives you more modalities. So people can see you, they can hear you, they get a better sense of you, because obviously voice tone has a real dramatic impact on bonding with people and rapport. So if you can use video, fantastic. But you're putting out a piece of material which is designed to help them with that first problem. So that's the simplest way to do it. Now, take that first problem. You're offering a solution, a mini solution, something they can do straight away. But then you wrap around that some additional stories which tie into what you want to be known for, what you want to be known as. And those stories support the bonding. You know, so the whole point, like I think I've touched on this before, but, you know, writing a presentation which is delivered live or in a webinar, the whole presentation is really top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, all in one go. That's literally it. And I never really thought of it as terms of top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel until I came online. Because obviously when I was just delivering to live audiences, I just thought of it as I need to take someone who doesn't know me, has never heard of me, and possibly doesn't even know they have this problem yet, and move them all the way down to, I understand the problem, I like you, I want the solution, I want it now. So it's literally, I was moving them through that funnel with one presentation. And that typically takes, or certainly from my experience, the most effective length of time to do that live was 90 minutes. Like, I tested shorter presentations, I tested longer presentations, and there was for me, I did not notice anything. Beyond 90 minutes, there was no difference in conversions in what I was doing. So I stuck with 90 minutes. Online, I've made it sometimes a little bit shorter, sometimes a little bit longer. And yes, online, if you can spend more time with people, the better, but not necessarily all in one go. So if you can break that over a few days, then you can potentially deepen the bond. If you do it over a few weeks, deepen it further. If you do it over a few years, deepen it even further. So all of that is designed. That first piece of material you put out as a video, simple, here's their first problem, here's a solution, share your stories. So I put out a couple of pieces this week for a campaign that I've put together. And there are 3 videos. One is the live stream video I did last week. One, and then the other 2 are like 2 parts of Invisible Influence. So they're 10-minute clips, and I'm sort of sharing the bare bones of Invisible Influence. And I positioned it in terms of helping people solve their traffic problems. So those are then going out. And now, of course, I'm running an advertising campaign to promote those to very specific audiences. So I've created some audiences inside of Facebook. I'm also going to be replicating that on YouTube over the next few days. So literally those are going out to those audiences. So I'm testing those audiences, and all I'm interested in is views. I'm interested in people watching the videos. And then I'm building an audience of everybody that views it. Because if they've watched it, and here's the other thing as well. I'll come to you. Hey, Tom, I'll answer your question in a second. Let me put that up so I don't forget. I'm using it. There's a study out. I forget who did the original research now. Oh, it might come to me later. But basically, first impressions matter. Like, we all know about it as an anecdotal type of, we all grew up with this idea of first impressions count. But there is actually science behind this. And we make an impression of somebody, and we make decisions about people literally within 3 seconds. I mean, it is rapid. So therefore, even somebody who's watched 3 seconds of a video has made a decision on some level about you or me, depending on, see if it's my video about me. And we can leverage that. So that's really interesting. So if they've then watched more of the video, if we can keep them engaged and move them along, stories help do that again. So everything's positioned as a story. So if you get a chance to see those videos, if they pop up in your newsfeed, then, watch the first watch the first minute maybe, if you're not particularly interested, but just watch the first minute from an experimental point of view. If you get drawn into it, then obviously watch the whole thing. But from that first minute, the whole idea is whatever I want to share starts with a story. So literally, I mean, I think it's the second one in the 2-part series. I literally started by talking about being in South Africa. So it's like, I was in South Africa in 2014, was delivering a 3-day event, and just in the break, this lady came up and asked me this question. So literally, I've started it as a story. So there's intrigue. It's like, what's the question about what's happening in South Africa? Why were you there? So there's all these things that get fired off. So that's one of the benefits of telling everything in a story, but you're drawing people in. Tom, Paul, how about leaders? Do they primarily move more away from pain than towards pleasure? From your experience, is there generally a pattern there or not really? What I would tell you from my personal experience and from observing friends, and I categorize this in the sense of friends I've had who have at some point had either a breakdown, as in they needed an absolute break, like nervous breakdown type things, or people who have struggled at some point. What was missing, and I would describe all of them as leaders, what was missing was a vision for their life. So I would generally say, and I'm not describing people as leaders, but I think generally human beings, we're all driven by pain. Like pain in the moment will get you out your chair, will get you moving. You see a saber-toothed tiger, you run straight away, you go. Pain will get you moving, or the perception of pain. Long term, though, that isn't particularly useful. That's dangerous. So that's where people get stuck in that sort of flip-flop trap, where the pain gets them started. So they go, oh my God, I've got to like take coaches, for example. Coaches want to get clients. So they're like, oh, I've got to do something. So I'll get over, like I don't want to go on video. It's a horrible idea. I don't want to be rejected. I want to see myself on video, because nobody's as pretty as they think they are. For the most part, I certainly know I'm not. So, they don't want to do it, but they do it. And then they force themselves to do it because they've been told that's a great way to market themselves. So they do it. But if you keep allowing the pain to drive you, eventually you will burn out. It is not a long-term strategy. And you will procrastinate. Procrastination is predominantly caused by only having a pain-driven motivational formula, if you like, or if you like, if your motivation fuel tank is only filled with pain, it's going to be very limited. And it will cause more and more stress on you, on your body, on your mental health. So therefore, you need to flip that, and you need something which will literally pull you along. And that's where your vision comes in. That's why I'm such an advocate of having a strong vision. I know that it has allowed me to maintain, like I get asked the question, why have you been so persistent for so long? It's like, I don't think of myself as being persistent because I have a vision. And that vision has evolved over time. I mean, in the beginning, it was very money driven. As I got, as the money started to work, as I started to sort that out, then I changed it, became much more impactfully driven, which was always my driving force anyway. But it's like that vision has changed and evolved and grown for the most part. And that vision is what keeps pulling me. So I would say, rather than generalizing to all leaders, I would say any leader who is in this for the long term and any leader who has survived long term. Like I was listening this morning on the radio, they were talking to, what's her name? Is it Charlene from the band Texas, the Scottish band Texas? I forget her surname now. And, it was Gary Davis was interviewing. I don't know if you know Gary Davis. If you're based in the UK, you might have heard of him. And he was asking her, saying, like, when you started out, and he'd met her right at the beginning of her career, or right at the beginning of Texas' career. And he said, when you started out, do you still think you'd be here 30 years later? And she's like, no, not at all. We didn't even think it would last 10 years. But if you're going to be in anything for any length of time, you need a longer term vision. You need something that is pulling you. So you can't rely on pain. So I wouldn't generalize and just say, how about leaders, as if they're one group. They're individual humans. But certainly if you want to be around long term and you want to be consistently moving forward and pushing back the boundaries in your life, and if you like experiencing more of what life has to offer and making a bigger impact on more people, then you're going to want a vision which is very positive for you, which is going to pull you forward. Pain, definitely, I still use pain to a certain extent, but short term and very deliberate, and it's almost like bursts. It's like being able to have that, like Fast and Furious 10's coming out, isn't it? Or 9 or 10, one of them, the latest one's coming out or has released in China or Taiwan, as John Cena apologized for. But anyway, that's just come out. And, like in those kind of cars, they might put nitrous oxide in it, but it doesn't last long, but it gives you a short, massive boost. So I use pain in the same way. I will deliberately use it in short bursts to get me to kind of do something, to get me building some momentum if I'm feeling a little bit, I can't be bothered, because we all have days like that. But if I'm in one of those, I can't be bothered and I need to get it done, then I will sort of use a little bit of pain burst, like nitrous oxide, boom, press the button, give myself a burst. But then I'm back into focusing on my longer term vision, and then I'm away, So I would say great leaders move towards pleasure would be the bottom line of that. And as I said, I don't like to generalize, so you got to break it down by person. But for you as a person, my biggest recommendation is make sure you have a long-term vision. And long-term, for me, I would start with 10 years. Think the question I've shared before. If you listen to my Crush It presentations, I always talk about, if you were to go out 10 years from now and look back over the last 10 years, what has to have happened for you to be happy with the results? So that's my starting question for developing a vision. So if you think about that in terms of results, both financially, career-wise, business-wise, relationships-wise, I break it down, friends, family, finances, fitness, fulfillment. So I have this little acronym of F's, which I use to guide my answers to that question. So I just break it down to different areas of my life. But once you've got that in, you got that nailed. And again, don't expect to necessarily answer all of that in one go. You can put some answers down, and then you maybe come back to it in 24 hours and you add some more. And then maybe a few days after that, you add some more. So it starts to evolve. And maybe over the period of a week, you end up with something which you're happy with, where you go, okay, this is a great starting point as a vision. This is what I would be very excited about if I've accomplished all this over the next 10 years. And then just go. And then again, action creates clarity. As you start moving forward and doing things, you might add to that vision, or you might change your mind on certain aspects of it. But it's just get started, have something which is very inspirational for you. So from a vision point of view, it's very pleasure driven. Hope that answers your question. Where was I? So I was talking about implying invisible influence. Yeah. So going back, top of funnel. So yes. Oh, I know where I was now. I remember. Yeah. Opening loops, by the way, is another way of keeping engagement. If you start a story, but then you don't finish it and you move into a second story, or you move into something else, and of course, everyone's brain subconsciously is going, there's more. So it's a way of keeping people engaged. So open loop. I started with, why am I writing a book? So the top of the funnel is, for this particular campaign, is 3 videos, as I said. So a 2-part video, 2 short 10-minute videos about invisible influence, solving a specific problem. And then the third video is the live from last week. And so they're all together. They're all in one ad set. So I've got 2 ad sets running for 2 different audiences, but they've both got the same 3. They've both got the same 3 videos, and I'm looking for video views. Now, once someone's watched that, then the next advert they're going to see from me is going to be contained. So as an ad set, those people that watch the video will go into their own ad set. So they're now an audience in their own right. So then we're into the middle of the funnel. So middle of the funnel, I want to reinforce how I want to be known, what I want to be known for. I want to subtly demonstrate some of that as well by helping people. And I also want to tell more stories to continue deepening that bond. So in the middle of the funnel, one of the things I'm going to do is offer the book. So there's going to be a number of other things. So the book isn't the only thing they will see. They will see a campaign which would be lead generation driven. So in other words, the outcome would be for them to give me their email address. And again, it's like, okay, what do I put around that to make that compelling enough for them to go, actually, giving you my email address is something I want to do. And there's real value to that. There'll also be within that a advert which is direct to sale. So in the middle of the funnel, I'm getting to test a number of different offers, if you like. So from a pure lead gen offer to a pure sale offer. So it might be low ticket in that respect. But again, I can test the offer. So I can test something at a lower ticket value. I can test something at a higher ticket value. So, I'm testing something. There'll be an offer for, like, I'm using my journaling habit product. So I'll be offering that in the middle of the funnel to see who takes that up. And understand as well, this is another key point as I dive into this. I think of the tree. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I know I was telling this to a friend of mine this week. So think a tree. A tree has multiple leaves. It doesn't have one leaf, one big leaf. It has multiple leaves. And the tree isn't, you're welcome, Tom. The tree isn't split testing leaves. It isn't going, well, that leaf's better at capturing light than that leaf. So let's get rid of that leaf and keep that one. It's not doing that. So in the middle of the funnel, I know there's this whole idea of split test, split test, split test, and I'm a big advocate of split testing ideas without a doubt. However, I'm also thinking of the tree metaphor and the different leaves. So I touched on this last week. Like I could write a message and I could use more feelings language, I could use more visual language, or I could use more auditory language. And that's one way of putting across the same message. And so those would be 3 different leaves that would appeal to 3 different types of people. So in other words, they can all be profitable. They're all doing their job. So in other words, you don't want to take you wouldn't take a leaf away unless it wasn't profitable. If it's still profitable, you keep it because it's appealing to a subset, a cohort within your niche, within your audience. So I'm not split testing offers at the middle of the funnel. I'm literally putting out multiple offers to appeal to different people within that original audience of people who've watched my videos from the top of the funnel. Does that make sense? That's what I'm doing. So some people will go, oh, well, might watch the video sales letter for the journaling habit and go, oh, that's great. I like that. I want that now. Great. And now, of course, that's deepened the bond because the fact that they buy something deepens the bond again. And then if they go through the material in the journaling habit, so they actually go into the product, I'm aware that not everybody does, but of course, they'll get a series of reminders and things to prompt them to use it. But as they go through it and they're going to hear my voice again, they're going to see me again, they're going to get a better understanding of my values on a more subconscious level because I can't not demonstrate my values. In other words, I go around my life, the way I speak, the things I do, my actions are a living demonstration of my values. So it reinforces that and helps realign them with that. So again, it's deepening. What do I want to be known for? What do I want to be known as? And it's deepening the bond. And I tell more stories. Like if you've heard me on any presentation, I tell stories. And, if you go extreme, like a Richard Bandler, I mean, that's all he does is tell stories. So the purpose of the stories is to bond, to share my values, which also helps to bond, to share ideas because people are more likely to act on them if they understand them. So all of these are literally layering different aspects of this invisible influence. Because if they now know me, like me, trust me, and absolutely believe I can help them get a result, then they're going to buy more from me, which means they're going to continue to get value. They're going to continue to solve their small problems and then their bigger problems so that they get to live and move towards the life they want. And obviously I benefit from a business perspective and I benefit from knowing I'm having an impact on their life. So that all works. So that's top of funnel. We're just looking for starting that bond, starting that process off. It's a bit like, in Marvel, they would tell the origin stories. Or if they haven't told an origin story fully, once they've got people interested in the whole concept, they typically will bring out a movie about the origin of such and such. Like I think they've just brought out, what's the one they brought out the last year? Black Widow. What's the actress's name? Forget her name now. I can see her face, can't remember her name. Anyway, so they just brought that one out. I know years ago they brought out the Wolverine origin story, but an origin story is a very powerful story to really bond people to you. Telling it out the gate, not so much, but certainly once you've got people's attention and started the bond by telling any story, then telling the origin story, people are more interested, they're more intrigued, they want to know more. So all of that's at the middle of the funnel. So we're testing offers from can I just capture their lead details? Can I make an offer for a small price product? Could I even make an offer for a bigger price product to see if that works? I can do all of that. But again, the key element is that within all of my sales material, there's still a story. There's always a continuation of a story. I think in one aspect, invisible influence is all storytelling. And there is certainly the idea that if you make all of your marketing storytelling, then it'll be more effective. What I've brought to it is understand, marketing, I think the concept of marketing gets misunderstood. The word has been around for so long, it's become too vague. So I think, having that idea of invisible influence, that's more what it's about. So do that. And then bottom of funnel, of course, is like follow-up. So let's say, for example, in the middle of the funnel, you did a lead piece where you were asking people to come on a webinar. Like you could certainly do that middle of the funnel. So then if they come on the webinar or they register for the webinar and then they show up but they don't buy, so then of course it's like, well, they registered, they've seen it, they've seen the offer, but they haven't bought yet. So typically, I would follow up with people via email and still do. So I'd say via email, and obviously I'd set this is where I might use certain tactics, like I'll use scarcity, but I position scarcity in another story. Like I'm totally against manipulative scarcity for the sake of manipulation when it's false. But I've found that if I am upfront and transparent with people and say, look, the whole point of giving you a 7-day deadline or a 3-day deadline is because human beings will put things off. And that's my big frame. It's like the deadline's there to get you to make a decision, in or out, but make a decision. What's right for you? Because if you don't make a decision, then you're just going to continue to be floating along doing what you're doing and nothing will change. So that's how I typically frame it. If there isn't a genuine reason for it, but you can use those tactics. So in the bottom of the funnel, in just like email where I'm following up, then I've got a series of ads that do exactly the same as what's in the email. I mean, literally the first ones I ran, I literally just copied what was in the email and put them in the ads. So it's just another way for people to see the same message. So they'll get it in their email box and, they go online and they see it online as well in their newsfeed. So the bottom of funnel is really just follow up, follow up, follow up. It's people who've already seen an offer from you. So if you follow that approach, then you've always got this situation where you're constantly putting people at the top of the funnel who have watched some of your videos, who have been intrigued by you sharing a solution to a problem they have, which they're aware of. And remember, of course, that the people you're trying to reach are not happy with their results. That's why they want a solution, even if they're not immediately looking for it. And of course, on Facebook, in that moment when somebody's on Facebook, they're not necessarily looking for a solution to anything. They're just on Facebook. It's social media. They're looking to be entertained. So there's another reason why you wrap everything in a story. So they then catch your video. It's relevant to them. They go, oh, that's a problem I have. Oh, what's this solution? You tell the story. So now you're giving them a solution and you're bonding and you're positioning yourself and if you're educating in any way, you're in a position of authority. So now you're reinforcing how you want to be known, what you want to be known as, all of those things. And then so you're constantly running those ads. They never stop. They're just constantly being run. And all I do is I look for bigger and bigger audiences and look where I'm getting the best response. And then, you're digging deeper into the research. So the whole research is a continuous cycle as well. I think that's important to recognize. So one of the things that Facebook do and Google do is, let's say, for example, you're looking to, well, it's still there at the moment, Audience Insights, which is a tool that Facebook have. They're taking it away. They're moving everything into their business suite. But I think you still get the same insights, is my understanding. But in Audience Insights, you can say, for example, think of your niche and think of what sort of things they'd be interested in or what people they would follow. Like, for example, a friend of mine who I'm helping at the moment, and his audience are very spiritual. So we were talking about, well, who are the spiritual people that they might follow or the books they might have read? So like a Wayne Dyer, for example. And then as I did the research, then I noticed that actually, well, Mindvalley, Vishna, I forget his surname, who started Mindvalley, although they share, similar concepts and ideas, it's much more of a spiritual focused audience, as in the audience have an interest in spirituality and believe in certain aspects of spirituality. So it's like, okay, well, that's an audience to test. So Audience Insights gives you this. So you can say, for example, you looked up Wayne Dyer, and then inside the Audience Insight, you might say, well, other pages these kind of people like, and it shows you an affinity. So it'll say, Mindvalley page, and it might say, 2,000 times affinity or something like this. So you get this idea of people who like this also like this. So you're always in your research, once you've proven that an audience works. So once I've demonstrated that actually people who like Wayne Dyer liked my friend's stuff, then it's like, okay, so we've got that. Now we can see that Mindvalley could be useful because they also have an affinity with Wayne Dyer. So now let's run that as an audience. So we're always looking to expand the pool of people that we can reach based on their interests and leveraging the research that's available inside of Facebook, inside of Google to help us, because they have massive insights. And I will tell you as well, once you really get into this and once you've got a proven offer, because part of doing this for the first time is what I said last week, which is this idea of getting what I call agency ready, where you're in a position where you could go to an agency if you wanted to. You don't have to, but the point is get to this point where you stay to an agency like, I want you to take over running all my advertising campaigns. They're going to say, have you got a proven funnel? Have you got something that works? Have you got an offer? Have you got an audience? Do you know basically that you've got a solution to problem fit? You've got a market fit, that you've got something that people are willing to buy. If you can say yes to all of that, then an agency will take you. But getting to that place is the first step. And that's the hardest step. Is like you've got to validate your offer. You've got to validate, like you have something that you totally believe in, that you want to run, that's how you want to make an impact. And this is typically very true for people who are in the coaching world, where they've gone and trained in something because they genuinely want to make a difference. Be like, if, let's say, I don't know, tapping, for example. I don't know anything about it, but I've heard of it. So let's say that's what you do. But then people get locked in, well, I do tapping. Well, it's like people don't want to buy tapping. They want to buy the result, the solution they can get from it. So then it's like helping people understand that, helping people articulate that, helping people translate that into an offer, and then helping find an audience that wants to buy that, and making sure you can validate all of those things. So in the beginning, getting to that place where you are agency ready, where you've got a proven acquisition funnel is really your first goal. It's like, because within achieving all of that, you will have to understand and develop your business model, and you'll have to understand who your audience is. You have to understand what messages resonate with them, and have a good understanding of how you could scale that. And that's really where I want to help people get to. So you go into all of that, and then within that, the point I was bringing this round to was, once you've got that working, you could go into Google and look at affinity audiences, and it will say people who like that also like, and you're looking at things that you would never have dreamed about. You would never have thought that the audience that you've got would also be like, let's say, for example, it's like selling something like the journaling habit. The journaling habit, I could understand it if Google turned around and said, by the way, the people who buy the journaling habit, this group of people would also be interested in it, as in they're interested in stoicism, they'd be likely to buy it. That would make sense. But what Google will say is, oh, by the way, people who like certain type of car, Scarlett Johansson, that's the one. Thank you. Let me put that up. Thanks. Is that a Connie? Is that how I pronounce it? Thanks, a Connie. Yes. It will say, like, people who like, I'm making this one up, but it's just to kind of give you an idea. It'll say, people who like Bentleys also are likely to buy the journaling habit. And you kind of go, that makes no sense whatsoever. But this is where the power of the AI comes in. And this really kicks in at this point, because then you can say, right, now we can scale. Because these affinity audiences that they have can potentially be huge. Now you've got these massive pools of audiences to pull from. But you would never have thought about them. Like, not in a million years would I connect people who buy the journaling habit with people who have an interest in calligraphy, for example. It's like, it just would never enter my head. It would never have entered, ever. In a million years, it would never have entered my head. But the AI is so powerful, it's like, it knows. It knows way better than we know. It can obviously do all the computational mathematics or whatever else goes on behind the scenes way faster, with way more data, way more intensity, without ever taking a rest than we ever can. So then you get to leverage it. But to get to that place, you've got to prove your funnel. And so that's where the invisible influence really, well, you're always going to use invisible influence. Once you've got into it, you just keep doing it. But it really kicks in. So in the beginning, it's like, understand top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. It's all got to be invisible influence. You cannot. So I saw a post this week from someone that I know, because he's come on this a couple of times, and I'd like to know what results they're getting from it. So I will put that out as a caveat, but my perception is they've put out a post and they're calling out to the people they think would be their ideal client. Nothing wrong with that. So they're basically saying, I would like these sorts of people. And it's like one of these, I've got this idea for a product. Would you like to be a beta test? Would you like to be a guinea pig, sort of thing? And I get it. Nothing wrong with that in itself. However, let's apply a little bit of logic to this. Hey, Rajesh. If you have no visibility currently, no audience currently, and you, in my terms, putting out a post that says, I'm looking for X number of people like this, I want to do a beta program, will you be a guinea pig? On your Facebook page, you got no visibility, nobody knows you. What's it likely to do? Because what you're effectively doing is you're jumping straight to middle of funnel. So you've just completely ignored top of funnel. You've gone straight to middle of funnel. So even if somebody sees your post, unless they are in a position where, and this can happen, if they're in a position where they are struggling with a problem which they've been struggling with for a long time, they're at that point of threshold where it's like, I just need a solution. I don't care what it is. I just want to do it. And they see that, then there's a good chance they might jump on it. Other than that, what's likely to happen? Nothing. It's like nobody's going to respond to it. So it's a problem. Now, is it better to do that than do absolutely nothing? I would probably say yes. I mean, I'm not a fan of doing nothing, because doing nothing, nobody knows you exist ever. But, you want to follow up with something. But my point is, go back top of funnel. It's like you need to build an audience. The biggest thing you need to do is build an audience. And you need to build an audience that knows you for what you want to be known as, and therefore has trust in you and level of credibility with you, so that when you then start to put out offers, they're interested. They give you their attention for long enough to get an understanding of what the offer is or whether they're interested in it, which is why I love this. Look, I've probably said this so many times. To go from a standing start, you've got to go top of funnel. You've got to be absolutely clear about what you want to be known as, what you want to be known for, what stories you're going to tell initially, what problems you're going to solve initially, which is the whole mapping the gap. What are the problems along the way? You've got to know all of that to put that in the top of the funnel, to wrap everything in a story. And then you got to put some money behind it. Look, if you've got, okay, let's take this on a extreme level. If you are on the verge of being homeless, you ain't doing any of this. Go get a job. Okay, so that's a caveat. If you are in a position where whatever money you've got, if you are sitting there thinking, well, I've got not really, and you're telling yourself you've got no money for advertising, that's a story in its own right. Only that's a story that's holding you back, because that's getting in the way. Look, I'm all for organic, but organic is a bonus as far as I'm concerned. It's not a business. So this whole idea of, well, I want to do something which is purely organic, that could take you years to build up enough of an audience. And yes, we all know people that have done that. And yes, that's fine if you're doing something else and you don't care and you're just happy to keep putting material out and wait organically, and you're happy to give it a couple of years to hit tipping point where it might rocket, and all of a sudden you've got, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people following you who absolutely love you and adore you, who are fans. Great. But otherwise, you are actually better spending your money top of funnel and building an audience who love you, because then you've got credibility to a specific audience. So then even if you bring out an offer and it's not the greatest offer in the world, but it's sincere and it's there to solve a problem that your audience are having, you will get buyers. Which goes back to what I said last week. It's like, I've read books on copywriting. I have written sales letters. I am not a copywriter. I was interested to the point of, I want to know enough to be able to effectively influence and effectively get people to make a buying decision. But I am not a world-class copywriter, and nor do I want to be. What I'm very good at is telling stories and getting people to buy in at the beginning. So you want to spend your money on that, building that audience. Because once you've got that audience, then you're in a position where you can start putting out a post that says, I need 5 people to jump on a beta program. Then it makes sense. I mean, obviously the other way around it, and yes, I've had the opportunity to do this, is if you are great at networking, which I don't think I am, but I do have a good network, so I've kind of managed to do it by just being around long enough. If you have a great network and you have friends in your network who have existing big audiences, like some of you know me from Alessio. Like, you'd never heard of me until Alessio invited me to do a webinar and you came on it. So I know that, like, I know Alessio has a big audience. They're not really directly connected to what I do, because most of his audience are more interested in the stock market and thing, which is not my thing. But they're also obviously interested in other aspects of their life. So there is some overlap there. So yes, he has a big audience. And yes, over the years, he's invited me to do a webinar every now and then. And I've gone and done a webinar. And if you can tap into that, then brilliant. Then you can deliver a presentation where effectively you're doing top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, all in one presentation. And that can work, as I've demonstrated. I can work very well. But you got to understand, unless you've got that, if you're starting out on your own, you know nobody, and you've got no access to somebody else's list or any reason why they would give you access to their audience, then really take some money. Whatever your monthly budget is, take $10 a month to start with, if that's all you've got, and put it at top of funnel. Like, literally, take something, create a couple of short videos and run top of funnel adverts and start building an audience. That would be the fastest, greatest thing you could do for yourself. Does that make sense? And that's what I'm looking to do. Like, this is a deliberate and very open seed. Like, I am looking at putting together a program where I'm getting people from nothing to agency ready. So they've got customer acquisition funnel proven, working, making money, ready to scale. Because that's the bit that's missing, in my opinion. For most people, they either go, oh, I'm good at what I do. I don't want to be a marketing person. Let somebody else do it. But unfortunately, you know, as I've mentioned before, the decent agencies won't take you because they need to know your funnel works, because it's a lot of work. When somebody's in that position, they don't actually need just advertising or just marketing. They need everything. They need someone to research audiences, write copy, put ads together, manage the ads, and they need business coaching. My experience when I've taken on people in that position, and I've told them at the beginning, like, I don't take people on like that, and they've been friends that I have agreed to take on, is that every time I've done it, I've got into it and gone, this person doesn't need advertising like they think they do. What they need is full-on business coaching. Like, they're not, the advertising is the bit that they think they need. What, that's only actually one ingredient in the bigger picture of the whole pie. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where I've been with those people. Right, let me share these slides just to reinforce what I've been talking about. And then I'm going to wrap up because I've got a book to write today, of course, as I mentioned before. I've got to finish that today. Share screen, window. This one, share. Okay, there we go. So top of funnel, you are telling stories. All the stories are designed. You are literally engineering what you want to be known for, what you want to be known as. So you are sharing, if you like, your legend, you know, like, so all the superheroes, they're legends. So you are literally developing your legend inside in the mind of the people that you want to reach. And I would say, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, one of the best investments you can make is to take those as videos, because you're not selling anything other than the concepts of this is who I am and this is how I want to be known. So you're not tangibly trying to get people to exchange, to give you money at this point. So it's much easier. You're just creating videos where you are solving an immediate problem they have. So this does require having a clear idea of who your ideal client is, or at least some idea of who you would like as a client, because that's always a good starting point. Then a good idea, like, you got to do the research to understand where are they now, where do they want to get to, what are their pain points along the way. So you've got some idea of their pain steps, so you can take some of the first initial problems they're facing, things they would probably be aware of right now, and you start doing solutions for that. Yeah, absolutely, Tom, you can. And that's great when you've got it, you know. But I mean, I've known Alessio for, oh God, what, 2007, 2008? I mean, it's a long time now, you know, so I've known him for a long time. And when I met him, he didn't have the audience he's got today. And he just, I think, this is going off on a complete tangent, but I think it was when he got invited as an expert commentator on BBC for something. I think that's when his audience exploded and he suddenly became well known. But anyway, I mean, if you've got access to that, then fantastic. Connie, if you've got a question, by all means, just ask it. More than happy to answer questions. That's what I'm here for. But you ask it, I'll keep talking. So tell stories, as I've said. So you want to have a good idea of who your client is, map their gap. I've talked about this many, many times. And so obviously pain point steps towards their goal, pain points they're going to face. Take the first pain point, come up with a solution for it based on what you do. You know, so if you are doing yoga and your audience is stressed out executives, and therefore, you know, first pain point they notice is maybe they've got a lack of energy, or maybe they're not sleeping well. And so you come up with a solution to that related to what you offer, which is obviously yoga in this case. And so you're also building into that, how do you want to be known? Because you don't just want to be known as a yoga instructor. It's like, how do you want to be known? You know, so it's like the stress buster or something like this. It's like, what do you want to be known for? So you start building that in. And so you're offering a solution to that first point of not sleeping well, using your understanding and expertise in yoga, but also to reinforce the story of how you want to be known. So you're bonding and you're building all that in. So the whole point of the story is you get what I put in brackets here, which is critical bypass. Connie, what are you saying here? What if you want to switch subjects? For example, I know you're from Alessio and he's known for trading in crypto. Yes, he is. What if he wants to switch tracks and be known as a tap dancer? Well, it's that Alessio is a tap dancer. Yeah, I could see that. I'm sure he'll be tickled by that. Yeah. So yeah, if you suddenly want to switch to be a tap dancer, then same process. It's like you're probably going after a different audience. It's unlikely that the audience of traders and cryptocurrency enthusiasts are going to suddenly be interested in tap dancing. So it's going to be a brand new audience, but it's the same process. It's like you go back to, well, who is my audience? Where are they? Where do they want to get to? Maybe they're just people that are, I don't know, I'm saying this off the top of my head. Let's say they're retired and they want to stay active, but they don't want to be doing, Ironmans or anything like that. And they want to do something that kind of helps them stay coordinated and helps the brain. Tap dancing, great way of doing that. Fun, it's social, it's not ridiculously exhausting. So maybe that's your audience. So it's like, okay, where are they? Where do they want to get to? And then again, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known as? Where are they? Are they on Facebook? Probably. So then start, okay, what sort of audience to do? The research, then start creating, okay, what's the first problem they're going to face? And then start talking about that in your stories. And again, building in how you want to be known, what you want to be known for. You're building all that in. So you're starting to create your legend still as you give them a solution to a problem. That's the whole point. So you're helping. So all these things are layered on top of each other. That's the whole point of it. Do not worry about it and start. Yes, yeah, basically that's what I'm saying. Yeah, start a new audience from scratch because it's unlikely there's going to be any overlap. I say unlikely because, as I'm saying, as I'm scaling certain couple of campaigns, particularly in YouTube, then, as I mentioned before, Google is saying, by the way, these are affinity audiences for what you're offering. And I'm looking at them going, I would never in a million years have guessed that. It's like just completely left field. But then you run them and it's like, actually, this is working. So yeah, the AI is strong without a doubt. Okay. So add value, solve problems, and you're building an audience of viewers. That's the whole point. This also, by the way, is even more important, I believe. I mean, it's always been ridiculously important. It's just that sometimes people get lazy because they're so impatient to get to I want to see the money, that they end up cutting steps out. And they've been fortunate in the sense of a lot of the retargeting, for example, with pixels. You could get away with a certain amount, certainly in the early days, like you just pixeling this page. Well, they arrived at this page and they didn't buy, so I'll retarget them to death by bombarding them with message after message after message saying, come back and buy, come back and buy, come back and buy. And enough people go, oh, you know what, I'll buy it. And they've managed to be able to do it in a way that is either profitable front end or close to profitable front end. And then a back end, they managed to turn it into a profit. But in my mind, that's just lazy and it isn't good long term. Whereas now, of course, with the whole iOS thing, then pixels are going away. I mean, that's just it. It's like, just accept they're going away. They're disappearing. So you got this situation where, well, if I can't pixel people who've arrived on a web page and then retarget them that way, then what do? Well, then you do it right. You do it this way. You start with the top of funnel, because I guarantee all of these audience of people that are watching a video, it's all inside, for example, Facebook. Facebook can track everything anybody does inside Facebook. There's nothing anybody can do about that. So, having a top of funnel and building and putting out videos as ads and building an audience of people who've watched those videos, you're always going to be able to do that. That's never going to change because that's all inside Facebook's own platform. So they're always going to be able to do that. I mean, obviously they might come out with different solutions further down the line for all of the pixel issues and the retargeting issues. But they can always, if someone's on Facebook logged in and they watch one of your videos, which is the only way they're going to be able to do it, then Facebook knows. So they're always going to be able to build that audience. So this really helps you get around those problems. It's like, recognize, do it right, start with the top of the funnel, put your attention there. So, do your budget. If you're literally starting out and you got very little money, budget what you've got each month, take out what you need for rent, food, essentials, all that kind of stuff. This is my suggestion. This is what I would do for bootstrapping. And then say, okay, look, I'm going to take $10 and I'm going to put it top of funnel. That would be better. You will get way more from that doing this right than you ever would from just going, well, I'm just going to build it organically and I'm going to keep posting. It's like, that's slow, really slow. Unless you tap into something, unless you start commenting on, I guess, other influencers' posts and things with a view to ultimately getting them to share something of yours, which I know can be a strategy. But at the same time, my experience, for the most part, I mean, there's, Alessio's in this world, but for the most part, most of the people that will want to share your material with their audience will want something in return, as in share their material with your audience. So there's always a two-way street in that respect. And I know years ago, like stuff I did, for example, with Darren Winters, we always did it that way. Like he would mail out for me, I would mail out for him. It was just literally whatever you call it, quid pro quo or something. So it was always quid pro quo. It was always like that. So that was the way we did it. But so top of the funnel, this is what you're doing. You are not selling anything. You're not asking for any money. You are literally planting seeds of you. You are building your legend in their mind. You're establishing yourself in their mind. You're establishing yourself as someone who is credible, likable, trusted, who can help them. And that's the whole point. You build that audience. Then you can then move those people that have watched the video. They then go to middle of funnel. And at this point, now you can start doing all sorts of things. And as I said before, different leaves on the tree. So just test different things. Like put together, if you've got an idea for an offer, you put it in middle of funnel, just see if it works or not. So it's like, okay, we can make requests. I could say, for example, I could run a survey. It's like, I need your help. Would you quite happily answer these 4 questions to help me? Tell me what you need to hear from me. You could do a survey and see what kind of response you get. You could make an offer, like I said, it could be a low ticket offer, like the journaling habit, like a $49 or a $99 offer. It could be come on a webinar. So it's literally just you're taking them down a process where you're going to make a bigger offer at the end of the webinar. And again, you want to continue to reinforce your legend, your positioning. You want to keep telling stories, always telling stories. Like marketing is storytelling. So you just keep doing that. And that's middle of funnel. Now, at this point, they're going to go through, for example, they go through the webinar. And I mean, if we're talking webinars, there's so much more you can do middle of funnel. First of all, you got a series of ads to say, come and register for the webinar. So they register. Once they've registered, you can have a series of ads saying, remember, we've got this webinar on this date. So you're then using little ads, little videos to reinforce you, to kind of get them excited about what's going to be on the webinar, because the challenge with online webinars, or one of the challenges, is people will register for something and then not show up because, of course, it's like it wasn't an absolutely essential thing they had to do. It was like in the spur of the moment, like, oh, that sounds good, I'll register. And then they forget about it. Or then something else comes up, or, Friends reunion TV shows on telly, and they're like, oh, I'd rather watch that. So all these things can happen. So you can run a series of ads to remind them, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and with reasons why they should attend live. Like give them reasons, make it exciting, make it compelling. And again, keep reinforcing you, your personality, your legend, all of those things. So then once they've actually watched the webinar, then you can get to bottom of funnel. So once they've gone through the webinar date's gone, then you get to bottom of funnel and you can start. If they haven't bought, or even if they have bought, you could potentially, I've not seen anyone do this, but you could potentially run adverts that say, you got this, have you started using it? Like, so for example, I'm thinking of, if I sell some of the courses that I'm putting together, once I sell them, then to run a couple of follow-up ads for say 7 days to a customer saying, have you got started yet? Do you need any help yet? Remember, you can always ask a question, just log into the members area, blah, blah, blah. So things like that, which would reinforce my values, because I'm showing that I care, because I do. So it would reinforce all those things. It demonstrates I'm being helpful. It demonstrates that I want them to succeed. It does all of that on a level just from having a follow-up ad that says, hey, by the way, congratulations. Have you got stuck in yet? Things that you could do like that. But also, if they've gone through a web class and they haven't bought, then you do all the follow-up stuff at the bottom of the funnel. So now you've got your emails going out saying, by the way, you can still get this offer, blah, blah, blah. And you can do that with your ads. By the way, you can still get this offer, blah, blah, blah. Little videos, same idea. You look, and just pre-frame everything. I know you might have got distracted. Maybe this wasn't right for you, or maybe it is right for you, but I'd like you to make a decision. In or out, where are you at? This is what's going to help you with, blah, blah, blah. This is perfect for you if, so all those sort of things, but follow up. And you can follow up in ads, you can follow up in email, you can follow up in Messenger, all sorts of, I put API there as a question mark. One of the things, obviously we're going to struggle more with retargeting, but because of the API, so Facebook have an API, Google have an API, and it's a way of saying, so if somebody registered for your webinar, they've now given you their email address. So you now have, it's now first party data is what it's called, because you own it. So for example, like I use ActiveCampaign for my email lists and things. So I've captured somebody's email address. They give me their email address. They go on a list inside of my ActiveCampaign account, and I can immediately from that shoot something back to Facebook's API saying, this is a webinar lead. Now, that does two things. One, it feeds Facebook's algorithm because that goes, oh, these are the kind of people that register for your webinar. So it helps me find more of those people to put in the top of the funnel. And it also means I get more effective tracking and more effective, so I can then follow up. So I can say those people, show them the follow-up ads, the bottom of funnel ads, if they haven't bought. So I can do that. So that's what the API is for. So that gives you a way of retargeting. And I could run the ads. I could run them in the newsfeed. I could run them in Messenger. Because if I built that much of a relationship with people, then I'd be quite cool to say, okay, well, actually, I can run some of these ads inside Facebook Messenger. Because these people know me now. They've spent all this time with me. They trust me. They like me. I'm perceiving them as being a fan. Like if somebody's taken a survey, come on a webinar, done a number of things, maybe even bought a smaller product, but hasn't yet bought, say, a bigger product from me, then I'm pretty certain they like what I'm doing. I can pretty much rest assured 99.9% they're a fan. So at that point, sending an advert into Messenger isn't going to be creepy or an interruption. It's going to be, oh, it's Paul again. So that's how I want it to be. All right, so that's bottom of funnel. So that was just my couple of notes on my fancy slides that I spent obviously weeks designing, putting together, some simple text on a couple of slides last night in about 3 minutes. But just to get across the idea. All right, so we're coming up to 5 to the hour. Connie, you're very welcome. Always a pleasure. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I hope this has been useful. So a couple of things in it is like, I guess, if anything, let me come out of that. Let me just put that. There we go. If anything, it's like this. What I really want you to take away from today is this idea that think of things in terms of top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Think that your driving theme is to create fans. And the way you do that is by establishing yourself as being different. And this all ties into what you want to be known for, what you want to be known as. It all ties into that. Like yesterday, somebody in a group that I know on Facebook had posted what is marketing, or what is marketing success, I think was the question. And there's all sorts of answers, but I just put, be cool, be different, be a good guy. So like be one of the good guys. So and I use the term guy, male, female, just be one of the good guys. And I think that's clear. It's like if you can build that, if that fits with your values, if that fits with how you want to be known, how you want to be known. And then let's say you layer into that, well, I'm a yoga expert, and you layer in, but I'm a yoga expert who wants to help, who's different, who's one of the good guys. And, you're very clear what sort of problems you can solve and for who you can solve them. And you build all that in, you put it in top of funnel. And then obviously you can grow it from there. And as I said, if you are in a position where you go, well, I don't know if I have much money. It's like whatever you've got, if you can only start with just literally $10 a month, spend it. Like you can get views for cents. They're not going to cost. So you could build an audience of 1,000 people very quickly. And now you start making offers to those 1,000 people, then you're going to start seeing some return. Just doing everything organically, I got nothing against it, but it can take years to grow an audience. So my advice, and the thing with organic is, from my perspective, and this is just my opinion, it is shared by other people, but it is really my opinion. Organic is a bonus. It's not a business. I'm all for paid advertising. So why do I say that as well? Like just thinking through the lens of what we've just been talking about for this whole hour and the last hour last week and the week before, why would I keep going on about use paid advertising, use at the top of the funnel? Because when I come to launch the coaching program that's going to be behind all of this, then I'm only going to want people who are interested in spending money on advertising. Like I wouldn't want anybody who goes, oh, I don't want to spend anything on advertising ever. Like I'm too scared of that. I don't even want to learn. I don't even want guidance on it. I don't even want help on it. That wouldn't be a good fit for me because I can't get them a result. I can help somebody get to a place where they are agency ready. They've got a product or a market fit. They've got a customer acquisition funnel that's working, that's ready to be scaled. But I can't do that if they go, well, I don't want to spend any money on advertising. It's like, well, this could take you years. All right, does that make sense? So that was just kind of stepping to one side and give you an insight into what comes out of me I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just saying, spend $10 on top of funnel. That's just like literally that's what I would do if I was starting out. But again, it ties in with my values. Like I said at the beginning, I cannot not share my values in how I speak and how I act because they're my values. They're built in. And so it does tie in, but I just thought I'd throw that in as an extra little insight and lesson. It's like it's also helping to reinforce who I would like as a client and who I don't want as a client. Does that make sense? Which is the whole point of what do you want to know now? What do you want to be known as? What's your legend? Build your stories. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I've got a book to write, as I said. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got as much from this and has enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed delivering it. And if you feel that you could, or you got friends who this would benefit from, by all means, share it. If you just feel like sharing it anyway on Facebook, by all means, do that as well. I'd fully appreciate it because I'm not against those little bonuses, but I just don't rely on them. All right. So I will talk to you again next Friday, if not before. Have a great week. Any questions on anything, leave them below. So if you're watching the replay, you got a question on anything I've talked about today, or even anything related to building your customer acquisition funnels, or even advertising, obviously put that below and I will, by all means, come back and answer you. All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. See you next time.